you, Jason, for having us at Olds College today. We're super excited as part of our Alberta farm trip to stop in at the Olds College Smart Farm and learn more about the Smart Farm in general, what it is, what you're doing, how students are going to be innovative and moving the industry forward through the years ahead. So let's dive right in. Can you just give us an overview of the Smart Farm? What is the Smart Farm?
Well, so I get asked that question a lot, and the Smart Farm it's a 2,800 acre living lab. So it's a functional mixed farm enterprise. So we run a cow-calf herd. We have 140 mother cows that we breed and calve out here on the farm, and we do all the forage production for the cow-calf operation as well as pasture grazing. We have a grain and oil seeds operation. So canola, wheat, barley, in terms of oil seeds and cereal grains is our typical rotation. We've also grown some other forage crops as well for forage production. And then some applied research, so some small plot applied research projects. But really, it's a mixed farming operation, and we run it as a business. And then it's made available for applied research projects around smart ag or ag technology, and then a living lab for our students as well, so that they can work with the technology in a production environment. And when I think about the size of what we are, so the average farm size in Western Canada is about 1,500 acres. So if we take out some of the applied research and the other more, science parts of it, we're basically that average mixed farm in Alberta.
Yeah, and so it operates year-round.
Yeah, we run it like any other farming operation. But so what makes it a smart farm is, if we look at that, is we've looked at what ag technology is out there that's either commercially available or maybe pre-commercial. And we've installed a number of different types of technology on the farm. So soil sensors measuring soil moisture and soil temperature, plant sensors measuring different types of things going on during the growing season with plants, weather stations, different types of yield monitors on our equipment, protein scanners on our combines, different pre-commercial technologies like an optical spot spray technology that identifies, green versus brown, and pre-emergent will spray a weed but not the rest of the soil. So it's taking all those technologies, putting them into use on the farm. Also the connectivity. So when you think of, those things all sound like digital technology, and many of them are, so they need connectivity. So we've built low power wide area networks, so LoRaWAN networks. Just 2 weeks ago with one of our large donors, partner TELUS, we announced that we have 5G connectivity on the farm. So it's using those different devices and sensors, kind of like an ag IoT environment, and all the connectivity that goes with it, and then all the data that comes from that. So we look at that data in different formats and in different tools and software platforms. So we have many different software platforms we use. And so all those things together provide the data that drive the decision making to make farming more profitable and more sustainable.
And so the students run the farm?
No, the students don't. So we have a farm team.
Okay.
Yeah, just like
any farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because the college owns the farm, we have a farm manager. So Ken Miller is our smart farm manager, and he has a team of about 6 people full-time. And then we do have students that come in the summer as summer students, but they actually operate the farm. So they run the business part of it, but they also they provide service to our academic folks, so the instructors and the students, and they also provide a service to the applied research team that runs all the different projects, testing out new technologies on the farm.
Okay, gotcha. So if a student was interested in attending the college, is there a particular program or an opportunity that allows them to get more involved with the Smart Farm portion of the program?
Yeah, so some of our, what I would call existing programs, so we have a 3+ 1 year applied degree, and so some of those students are doing projects on the farm. We have our 2-year diploma in ag production, so whether they're on the crop side or the livestock side, those students, so The one class actually is the class that I taught when I came here. They cab out the cow herd. So starting in January, their first day of class, they're put into groups and they cab out the cow herd till the end of March. So that's not just hands-on learning, that's hands-in learning.
Yep.
And then we have 2 new programs. So we have a 1-year after diploma certificate in ag tech integration. And so those students are doing projects with equipment and devices and on the farm. And then we have a 2-year diploma in techronomy. So those students as well are doing projects on the farm with technology, with crops, with livestock. And so there's some really cool things, new things they're doing around equipment and technology to create growing environments and measure what's going on, and doing that even remotely. They're doing that as students. They're working on projects. They get a kit of basically ag IoT equipment and a growing medium and some seeds, and they grow in virtual because our students were off-site.
Yes.
But they all did it together. All that data went up to the cloud, and they can compare how they were doing at the same time. Very cool.
Excellent. So, well, we're seeing more, and hearing more about sort of data and data analytics and decision making. So how does this transfer to the real scale of the world when they leave the college? How did they take that with them and apply it to their farming or to their careers?
Well, so we're in what we call the farmhouse of the future. So, if we were to look around the room right now, that data is represented, the devices and the sensors that are collecting data are on the screens all around the room that are visualizing that data. So the students, when they learn the techniques around the technology or the science behind that and how to install sensors and work with devices and displays, and then how to look at the data, then that data, how do they put that into practice? Basically is they're learning how to work with that data, how to analyze the data, and how to use that for decision making. So then if they're going back to let's say they came from a farm, they had a family farm, they would take that technology, but it's really the decision making that comes out of that to help them make better decisions around soil health and around yield and productivity and around profitability. So that's how they take that. But then we're getting students, I would say more students these days that aren't coming from the farm. They're coming from more of like an urban setting. They're coming from the city, but they're maybe really gifted in or interested in programming, even in the idea of gaming, right? So the whole idea of, the programming and the development of a gaming system and the visualization, that actually applies a lot to agriculture. So they would take what they've learned from here, and they would maybe go back and after they're done and work with one of our large industry folks to work on the data side of things, maybe back in industry where they're not necessarily going back to the farm.
Yeah, interesting. So lots of different practical applications. I mean,
all over.
Yeah.
And so we often maybe sometimes think about agriculture education around primary production, like the farm. But when you think about all the different businesses, especially with ag technology that provide services, the opportunities for students to go into all different parts of the supply chain, the different parts of the ag business, is a lot bigger now than it ever was.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with Ag for Life on careers and promotions of careers. And what gets the kids excited, the students, when we're out in the schools, is the tech and the innovation. When we start talking about, sort of the evolution, I guess, if you will, of agriculture from, maybe back when Grandma and Grandpa had the farm to where we're going. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing that you've got, your smartphone and you're making decisions as you go, within the cab, and it's all just happened. Like it's. I mean, there's a lot of work behind it, but it's happening, right? That's ag today.
Absolutely, and the technology is more accessible, like you said, with smartphones or even other, with a tablet or a laptop or whatever. So what it's doing is it's taking what maybe traditionally was that learned knowledge from being on the farm, and you learn it from one generation to the next, is actually making that more available to a much broader range of people that can get involved in agriculture. And it's probably because of the advent of technology and the accessibility of the knowledge and the practice with devices, with smartphones, with laptops and that type of technology.
And so when did the program, when did the Smart Farm start here at Olds College?
So in late 2017, the leadership of the college realized that with where agriculture was going, that one of the biggest opportunities was to have a functioning smart farm. So the idea was sort of cast in the late part of 2017, and I was asked to come up with what the first phase of smart farm would look like. So I spent almost 3 months and worked with some other industry folks that I knew to create sort of phase one, what I would call like a minimum viable product of smart farm. And we identified one field, so 106 acres. We're now 2,800 acres, but we said, let's start in one field with some technology. And so by February of 2018, we had a design idea in place. And basically I was told like to go ahead and make it happen. So, which is really interesting because it was a new project, new idea. There was sort of one person, no budget really. So it was a total lean startup, like a bootstrap sort of.
Here, do this.
Yeah,
no money.
but with tons of support, right, from our leadership. And by June of that year, we had what we called the phase one of Smart Farm.
Yeah. So what phase are we on today?
Oh, we don't really have, it grows exponentially every year. So we're basically 3 years past that now. So if you think of size, we went from that one field with a few different applicable technologies to 2,800 acres. And it spans not only just the land that's connected to the campus here, but we've also were the privileged recipients of 2 estate donations. So we've added 2 other farming operations in that span of time.
Okay.
So we have land west of Carstairs, it's about 30 kilometers southwest of here, and we have land west of Didsbury. So we have the Steckler farm west of Didsbury, so 310 acres there. We have the Pittstra farm, which is 30 kilometers from here. And we operate those as functioning parts of our overall enterprise. So it's not a phased approach, it just continues to grow exponentially every year. And so what we've learned to be able to do is scale our technology across that. So I can look up here at the monitors right now and see what's the electric fence status of the Pittstra place right now, that if I were to drive down there, it's a 30-minute drive for me to go check fences to make sure that they're okay, or to check the water level. But I can look and say, oh, fences are good, water level's good, cattle are where they're supposed to be. And so it's scaling in that fashion rather than, a planned phased approach.
Gotcha. Yeah, which makes sense, right? So you've used the word living lab. So that really is what you're doing. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of experimenting, I would say, just as you're expanding and you're adding additional. And I like the fact that, like you said, you've got that leadership support behind you. So from being in the industry over the very short period of time, the smart farm has come a long ways very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that you're seeing from some conversations sort of increase enrollment through the years. There's a lot more attention. So where's the smart farm headed?
Well, as it sort of scales exponentially, opportunities are coming up. So for one of those places it's headed is helping to lead the Pan-Canadian Smart Farm Network. So that was just announced recently. So Olds College helped to lead that group of Canadian smart farms. So Lakeland College, in Langham, Saskatchewan, we have Glacier's Discovery Farm. And then in Ottawa, in their green space, they have the Area XO. So we're actually putting in clusters of sensors, the same sensors in all these different parts of Canada, measuring the same things, but in different climate zones and in different growing conditions. And so one of the places it's headed is helping to lead that, to figure out how do these sensors work, how do these same sensors work in different areas to drive the decision making and to drive sustainability and profitability. And so it's growing, I would say, in that way. There's even things like the idea of, there's a deep space food challenge, for instance. So how to grow food in a containerized environment when we think about exploring, even Mars and sending manned missions to Mars. So there's some research projects that are starting to form around how do we help to grow food in an environment like that, that's sustainable over, in deep space for years at a time.
Wow.
So that's a long ways off.
Yeah.
What's not so long off is the national aspect, but even internationally, we're connected with a number of other smart farms in the UK, in Australia, and beyond. So students have opportunities to get involved in all these, whether it's on our farm, hands-on, or whether it's maybe across Canada, or maybe it's in shared learning experiences with other institutions in other parts of the world.
That's fascinating. That's tremendous. What an opportunity for students. I mean, and the opportunity again, we're connected, right? It's global, and agriculture is very much, a global industry when it comes to. I think about we're export, how much we export out of Alberta. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for students to be able to talk with other students in other areas of the world and compare and use that information to make decisions.
So here's an example of a project that could happen that we've talked about. So a feedlot project where there's students from Olds College that are learning about the different factors and influences on feeding cattle in a confined feeding operation where there's temperature extremes of like minus 40 Celsius, right, in the winter.
Yes.
But they're working with a group of students in West Central Australia who that has never even entered their mind, but they actually know more about this, the temperature stress of feeding in plus 40 degrees Celsius, right?
Yes,
and
of course.
So letting them actually work together, and then not only just doing that virtually, but what about if those students went and did it like an exchange?
Yes.
And they could, as they learn together, maybe as for part of that program, they would actually go to that other growing environment and apply what they've learned there.
That's pretty cool. I mean, when you start to think about that, again, connectivity, right? Taking all of that information. We work a lot with, around agriculture education, and whether it be students or teachers or Albertans and consumers just interested in food. It's absolutely fascinating. I mean, we're so blessed in this province, in this country, to have access to high quality, affordable, food, and the direction of where agriculture is going. We're checking the boxes to make sure that as a producing country, we're able to do that efficiently and effectively and sustainably as we can, and remain a leader in agriculture at home and across the world.
So when I think I want to go back to the word sustainable.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my least favorite words.
Yes. What does it mean?
Well, to me, sustainable means like, let's just keep things the way they are. And my problem with that is that's actually not very helpful, because environment's always changing, the way we grow things is always changing. And we've done some things, I think personally, in the way that we've grown food that maybe aren't, we haven't taken care, we haven't been the best stewards of the land as we could have. Although most farmers, I would say almost all farmers want to be good stewards of the land. So when I think about opportunities for students to, I borrow this term from Rob Sake. He uses the term infinitely sustainable.
Yes.
And so I think about what students can learn about the idea of how do we grow food in a way that's more part of a circular economy? How do we make things better as we grow them? How do we, instead of being extractive of the value of the land, how do we do things in such a way that is additive to the value of the land? So that's things like, how do we sequester more atmospheric carbon into the soil? So to me, that's the term that gets used lots these days is regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
So that's a term, but I've actually practiced that on the ranch that I managed before I came here in terms of how I built a system, how I grazed the cattle, how we increased the soil health. And so that's beyond sustainable, right? That's actually regenerating creation, it's redeeming it, it's making it better, more valuable. But it's also driving profitability.
Yes, equally important. Yeah.
And so sustainable, I just think sometimes it backs us into a bit of a corner.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so how do we help students learn how to do things that are additive, that are part of that, not even the idea of a circular economy, but how do we teach them about that? And then how do they get to go out and practice it? Like, how do they get their hands on it and learn what it means to make things better?
Well, and I think you raise a really important point. How do you take what you've learned and then go out of the educational environment and put it into practice. And, we have to feed the world. We have to do it whatever word you want to use. But I totally agree with you. Let's give back, right? It's 2021. We should be able to be giving back as well.
So let me use an example.
Okay.
So I was talking to you before about, I did a guest lecture in a grade 10 class, right? And so some of the students, and I've seen it before, like this is how they're learning, right? Because they have a 20-year-old textbook. I look at their textbook and I'm like, well, there's a car in there that I bought when I still had hair.
Probably has my name in the book.
Right. So it's 20 years old, right? And it's not very engaging. So I took to the classroom some compost from under our sink, some soil that I built from feedlot manure. I took a container of actual cow manure from the day before, and I tried to make it real for them in the classroom. And I think it was pretty engaging, but that's only me thinking about how I did. But what I'm getting at is trying to help students understand what's real about agriculture and where food comes from, how soil works. So instead of looking at a 20-year-old textbook, what we're doing here at Old College is all that stuff that I brought is out there, right? The feedlot's out there, the canola and the wheat and the barley's out there, the cattle are out there, the sheep flock is out there, all the technology's out there. So they get to put their hands on that every day. So their learning experience isn't looking at a 20-year-old textbook or listening to a guy like me stand at the front of the room and give a lecture for 45 minutes. It's actually touching stuff and doing stuff and taking theory and putting it into practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And a little bit of that next generation wisdom where they will improve things, right? They will look to give back, and whether that's through regenerative agriculture or sustainable agriculture or whatever term we're going to use, they're going to give back. And we've got the tools, and we're sitting here in a smart farm today. They've got the tools to do it, and it's going to be amazing to watch.
So those are the kind of people I want to challenge me in my thinking, right?
Yes.
So to be informed enough and bold enough to be able to challenge some of my thinking. So on the ranch where I managed, I worked lots with my daughter there, and she tells me these stories where she would be in tears. She was so mad at me because she wanted me to do something different, but I was like, well, this is just the way we do it, right?
It works. Why would I change it?
And now she's a grown woman and she's got kids of her own, so she's more open to tell me these stories. So she's like, Dad, and when we did it my way, it worked. And so what I want students that come here is to be informed enough and respectful enough and bold enough to challenge mom or dad at home or to challenge the company that they work in to say, well, I learned something different and here's why I think it's important, and can we try it this way?
Yeah.
That's what I want to have happen, so that, because there's lots of stuff I know that's probably still pretty relevant, but there's lots of stuff I don't know. So how do we teach our students to be bold and to question and to teach us and also learn at the same time?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, you sign up to come to Olds College is what you do.
Totally. And we have the teachers, the instructors that we have are like that. They are experts, but they want to pull out of the students as well what they know, or to challenge them to be critical thinkers. So it sounds like a big, $5 word, but being a critical thinker is actually learning enough and knowing enough about how things work to be able to ask questions about it. And that's how our programs work here.
That's brilliant. Well, and part of our goal through our Alberta Farm Road Trip is to connect Albertans to agriculture and to highlight the amazing work that's being done in the province. And we thank you, Jason, for letting us come to the Smart Farm today, because this is a fantastic look into tech and innovation. And we can certainly be proud that you and your students are going to be taking care of us as we feed the world.
Well, let's go out and look at some sensors and devices and network and animals and crop and see how it's going.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.